Good day, well, it's definitely good to be back once again on this Sunday afternoon. Hope you can join us for a very entertaining and interesting chat. I got this gentleman on standby. He's a unique individual. He's a double international, represented his country in cricket and tennis, and played in 3 World Cups. It's an amazing human. And despite his cricketing and sporting abilities on and off the field, he has done so much since his retirement from the game. And he's on standby in a beautiful background. In Nairobi. I understand that it's a beautiful day in Kenya. That's a country that home to me. Sometime back, I always have many memories, and I treasure them very much. Lots of my friends. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring this unique gentleman and great human, Mr. Aasif Karim, and hopefully he can join us. And good day, Aasif. How are you doing, mate? How are you faring in Kenya?
Great. Thank you very much. Great to connect with you after a very long time. You've got a history in Kenya for almost a decade. I think you were here in the late 90s and stayed almost 10 years and had a good Kenyan experience. So it's wonderful right now here in Kenya. Lovely weather, and look forward to this interview that you've set up.
Right, great. Asif, great to have you. Thanks for the kind sentiments. Yes, as I said before, that I still have some wonderful memories. Thinking my time in Kenya, and I'm so grateful that I met people like you during my short stay. I wouldn't call it short, but it's quite a long time. When I look back. And Asif, tell us that I know it's been the very hard times. It's not only in Kenya, it's even in Sri Lanka. It's all over the world for that matter. And we all went through very hard times, and we are still in the middle of this pandemic. How have you fared? How has Kenya fared? Just if you can tell us, that how you managed to get through this period that we in Sri Lanka, that we had not a lockdown. We had curfew for almost 8 weeks. I think in Kenya you had a lockdown scenario. Is the virus under control, or how are you guys doing? Are you back to work? How is it going?
Yeah, I think it's a global problem. The situation is quite dire all over the world, and Kenya, of course, is no exception. What has happened? We've had a curfew for the last 2 months plus, from
Right.
7 in the evening to 5 in the morning, and curfew still is continued. There's also been a lockdown as far as traveling is concerned from outside the city for almost now 6 weeks. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of anxiety all around. But like any situation during a calamity, I think our sixth sense comes in. We need to regroup. We need to look at the situation. And as like a lot of good business talk right now, today or this year is not about making money or losing money. It's about making sure that we stay alive and we
Sure.
persevere so that we can come out of this wave and come out as better human beings and stronger human beings, so that we can do a good thing to the society, which I think we had lost track. I think we were all on a super highway, not realizing what we are doing, where we are going, and we're just waking up, going, coming, and so I think it's a time for self-reflection. I mean, I'm talking about myself. It's a huge self-reflection on things that we need to regroup, we need to review, and trying to live in a better environment and create a better situation for all the people to have a positive energy all around. And we need to give the world a better situation than where we are.
Brilliant words, the words of wisdom, Asif. That is always that perhaps one thing I've learned, that you're apart from the cricketing abilities on and off the field, that you're off the field, what you have done, what you have contributed to the cricketing fraternity, and the game in Kenya as a whole, and your other work and your excellent language skills. And thank you very much for those great words. Asif, let's start. Where do we start? You're a man who played in three World Cups. If I'm not mistaken, that not many people have achieved that feat. That it's amazing, and that I know that you have a lot of memories when you look back. During that time, and I think you were fortunate to tour Sri Lanka once, and that during a very tough time. And if you can tell us about your briefly, or take your time. There's no hurry at all. And if you can recall your memories from, I think that 96 was your first World Cup, if I'm not mistaken, and I think you were the vice captain of the team then. And what was it like? That was the time that I think Australia and West Indies, we were drawn into the same group, and they decided not to visit Sri Lanka, which was very unfortunate. And it was only Kenya who took the call to play a match in Sri Lanka. What was it like? Tell us your experience.
Well, first of all, I mean, let me go a little bit back to say that, Kenya did extremely well over the few years that it played in the Associate Trophy. And 94 tournament was hosted in Kenya, where three teams were to qualify for the World Cup. Unfortunately, Kenya reached the finals. We lost to UAE, but we qualified for what was going to be a very exciting World Cup in '96, especially in the subcontinent. And I always say that if there is any professional cricketer that has played, no matter what cricket he has played, if he has not played a World Cup or has not toured the subcontinent, I don't think he's completed his cricket. So it was a great thing that we, as amateurs, first of all, qualified to play a World Cup, and then secondly in the subcontinent. So obviously we were all excited, and we were, as you rightly said, we were drawn in a very challenging and a very tough group. And our goal was that we would like to be very competitive in this tournament. It was a very important tournament for Kenya, for the world to see that Kenya was a young, upcoming, competitive nation. We had a fantastic team. I think with the team that we had from '94, where we had a lot of senior cricketers with very good experience. And then we had the youngsters with the likes of Maurice Adumbe and Steve Tikolo maturing and coming in at the very appropriate time. So we were very focused. We had prepared very well for this tournament, and mentally, emotionally, and physically, we were ready to do well in that World Cup. So, of course, when we were going to India. That was the base for us. There were already discussions about people not going to Sri Lanka to play. I think the feud actually started between Sri Lanka and Australia a few months before the tournament. So, it spilled over, and Australia, being a powerful nation, of course, were dictating the situation and controlling a lot of other cricketing countries. And I think West Indies fell in that trap. So we were also put under a lot of pressure internally that we should also not play. But I think the players, the management, and the association were really not interested to listen to that. We were going to a World Cup after a lot of effort, a lot of training. And for us, it was an opportunity to play the highest level, which was very paramount because we needed to play as many matches as possible.
Sure.
So obviously, diplomacy came in, and we said we'll address the situation as we get to India and see how the situation is. So because we were a young nation to be pressured all over, but I think the management did very good job by being diplomatic. I think there was a lot of diplomacy used all around, and said we will take it as we move along. So when we got to India, of course, there was a lot of discussion. It was a daily discussion, because I think they were really putting a lot of pressure to Sri Lanka, and in fact, they were even talking about moving the matches to India and Pakistan. All matches of Sri Lanka to be put either played in India or in Pakistan. And of course, Sri Lanka were rightly very committed and strong in keeping their self-respect, and said we are going to honor all the fixtures as has been agreed. So obviously, West Indies and Australia did not travel to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka got the deserved 4 points that they got. And I think it was only Zimbabwe who went there first, and then Kenyans to follow. So as we were progressing in the tournament, the discussion was ongoing. But we were determined between the players The senior players had a lot of discussion on this matter with the management. And we said, we have nothing against Sri Lanka. This is a young nation. At that stage, we felt, in fact, before the World Cup, to be very honest, one of the teams that we had targeted that we would, and take it with a positive spirit of what I am saying, that we will give them a run for their money. Because
Yep.
Sri Lanka until then was also a team that was competitive, but was not a force to reckon with as much.
Yep.
So that was one of the teams that we were targeting to be very, very competitive and possibly to even try and see if we can beat them. And of course, the other team that we were targeting was Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So as we got in there and we were determined that we wanted to play, and Sri Lankans had already given us a huge assurance on all the talks about the insecurity and so many things that were being created and the fear that was created, that we were comfortable with or without that statement, because our focus was to play as many cricket matches as we could at the highest level. We don't get those opportunities. This was our first opportunity, and the next opportunity, if at all, from 96 would be the next World Cup, which would be in 99. So
Yes.
that's a huge gap. So we wanted to play the matches and be proud to ourselves as individuals and as a team. So of course we were then informed that the Sri Lankan board and the highest level at the government level had organized state security. They were going to fly us in the helicopter from Colombo to Kandy. So I
Yes.
mean, the moment we heard about helicopters, so there was excitement, because most of us had never ever had experience on going in a helicopter through the mountains, and so all that was a lot of excitement. So we made a decision that we are going, and of course those dividends really played, because later on Sri Lanka reciprocated that good gesture, but which we can talk about it later on. So it was wonderful. We went to Kandy. And I remember at that time when we were in Kandy, we were almost there a week, because Sri Lanka was playing India in Delhi in the preliminary rounds. I think that
Right.
was the only match that Sri Lanka played away in their preliminary matches. The
That's
four
right.
matches were scheduled in Sri Lanka. So I remember watching on television in Sri Lanka easily beating India in Delhi,
Right.
chasing a huge score. And so we waited for them to come in because they were playing us next. So we enjoyed ourselves in Kandy. It was quite hot. I can't remember the name of the stadium, but we were received extremely well there. We were in a hotel for a week. We were regularly in training, and the hospitality was I would say 5 star. Very well respected, given us all the due respect, even though we were a very young nation in cricket. But I'm sure Sri Lankans also realized that they were also come from a similar journey 20, 25 years back. So then we play Sri Lanka in Kandy. So, and if I just go back, we had just beaten West Indies 10 days before in Pune. And that was a huge, huge win for Kenya. And all of a sudden, Kenya became what we call instant heroes in the world cricket.
That's right.
And Morris getting carried away, and the flamboyancy that he has, he speaks to the reporter and says, "Watch out, Sri Lanka, we are coming." And and later on, why I'm mentioning this is because when Arjuna and the Sri Lankans came here to play the Four Nation tournament 6 months later, and we then became good. We had a good acquaintance, and we started building a relationship with Arjuna. And so we talked about a few things, and he mentioned that the team was a little taken aback with that headline, the Sri Lankan team. And so we said, well, we need to teach these young boys a lesson on the field. And when we went on the field, I mean, within no time, Sanath and Kalu, I think in 6 or 7 overs, there were 70 to 75 runs, and we didn't even know what hit us. I mean, we had our top ballers with Rajab Ali and Martin Suji, who started so well against the West Indies. We had a lot of confidence when we came into the team. And the other thing that amazed me with the Sri Lankan cricket was the crowd. I mean, there was a packed crowd, and there were drums and music going on from before the match started. And this went on throughout the match. And this was something very unusual for us. But it was entertaining, it was fun, and you could see that everybody there, being a small city, because they rarely get those matches those days, so they came out in large numbers. They enjoyed themselves. There was food there was drinks there, and partying, and of course boundaries are going, and the Sri Lankans ended up getting just under 400 runs, which was a world record then, the highest runs any team had ever gotten in one-day cricket.
True.
So I mean that was one. But of course, like we were determined, that was our last match in the World Cup. We were very focused that we want to be competitive, and one thing we had agreed as far as the batting is concerned, that we must be able to bat 50 overs, and if we bat 50 overs well, we will be competitive. Of course, we were outplayed in the overall context of the result, but we scored almost 250 runs, and we were, I think, for about six. And so our batters did very well. We scored well, and so we ended up satisfying overall that we were not. I mean, we were outplayed in terms of against the runs, but the Sri Lankans could not get all our wickets, and so we felt we were competitive. And the entire tournament, I think Kenyans did proud. And as I said, our visit to Sri Lanka was memorable. We enjoyed. We made a lot of good friends, and of course, we then had a lot of respect, and we looked forward to Sri Lanka going ahead in the tournament and possibly even winning that tournament then.
That's right. It's what a beautiful story. And you said it the way it was. I recall that vividly, that how Kenyans arrived in Sri Lanka and how you were received on arrival. Again, you would have noticed the drums, and on arrival, you were garlanded, and then they were from I think from the airport straight away. You were taken airlifted to Kandy, and I can imagine what the boys went through, and that is so glad to hear coming from a fellow competitor and from an opposition player that that you were well received and you were very well looked after. And that's Sri Lankan hospitality, mind you. And the drums, that's part of our culture. And to date, that whenever there is a game on, the first thing that you hear, even before the toss is put, like the drummers are there, the big trumpets playing, very similar to what's happening in South Africa sometimes, but different kind of music though. Different. It's more like very rhythmic, very fast kind of music. That's a very typical. We call it baila, Sri Lankan baila that they play. We try to keep our players' spirits high, spirits up, and the spectators. And also sometimes it can be annoying, that for the visitors, because if you're not used to it. But some of the players, if you some of the players who have traveled over the years to Sri Lanka have got used to it. In fact, the first thing they ask, where are the bands? That so they have got so accustomed. It's a brilliant story. And the whole 96, going back, that's to you were vice captain then, right? And then you went on to the 1999 World Cup. Just a picture of you and Arjuna then. Just taking so many years back. Wow, you both look very young. Just when was this picture taken, Aasif?
Yeah, this was 2001. I had retired in 99 after the World Cup. As I said, since the 96 World Cup and then the four-nation tournament which Sri Lanka participated in Kenya, Arjuna and myself had mutual respect for each other, and we could communicate with each other. And I remember in 99 at the Lords when the captains met for a captains meeting. And there we strengthened our discussion because remember there's a lot of Cold War between the captains in the big nations. So here is a young Kenyan team. So I could see that most of the captains were comfortable chatting with me then among their own peers. And so of course I built my my network with Arjuna, and I mentioned to him that look, in those days there was no YouTube or there was no cricket recording that we could keep, and that match was not televised in Kenya, the one between Kenya and Sri Lanka. So I'm a historian in the way that I like to keep my records and I like to keep things where I am involved. So I requested him that if he could organize me a VCR, if you remember those the VCR tapes in those days, if he could get me from the library, from the Sri Lankan board, or from himself, the match that Kenyan played. Because we would want to keep it for record and to see how we were bashed around for 400 runs and to see how it looked when we see it again. So he promised me that when we play them in Southampton, which was about almost 4 or 5 weeks later, he'll ensure that the tape would be brought from Sri Lanka because there were some officials and some other family members coming in for the tournament. And true to his word, when we played them in Southampton, He gave me that video cassette that between Kenya and Sri Lanka, and of course we continued our relationship, all that. And then in year 2001, in Gujarat, there was an earthquake. If you remember, in Bhuj, there was a huge earthquake, massive losses, and of course, in those days, whenever such things did happen, cricket was one avenue where people would get together and see if they could raise some money to help the society that was affected.
Yeah.
And so I quickly organized a cricket match between the current Kenyan players and the past Kenyan players to see what we could do to contribute, to make our little contribution to this episode that has happened in India. So, of course, I straight away thought of Arjuna to see if he could come and support that tournament, I mean, that match for that day. And on the very first phone call, he willingly supported it and flew in immediately within a week. I think it was I gave him about a week or 2 weeks notice on the matter, and he came in for that tournament. And that's the photograph that you saw, and that's the cover of the sports magazine that I published, where we gave him the due respect and put him on the cover for that event. And we raised on that one day over $10,000, and we distributed to the society, and we also gave it to the Prime Minister in the fund in India. And so it was a wonderful experience, and the Kenyan cricket fraternity acknowledged Arjuna's visit, and for him to come all the way and to participate with the boys. And of course, after the game, we had a social event where he spoke to the boys, gave his advice, give his wisdom that he has over the years, and he was very well respected in the Kenyan cricket fraternity. And so that's the little history in respect of that photograph and on that cover.
Great story, Asif. You know that I invited Arjuna to try and surprise you. That on the show, I do not know whether Arjuna received my message, because he's quite tied up at the moment with his the political career at the moment. Unfortunately, Arjuna is not involved with cricket, but he still keeps a tab on it. And it's great to know that you guys still have those the old relationships that you build with your opposition players, and that today that you continue that whatever that the bonding that you had on the field, and it's carried on to other activities off field, and that you do a lot of charities and stuff like that whenever the world requires you. And that's what we need, isn't it? At the start, that the way you spoke, and during this period, what we learned, that what we can share our experience and inspire others, whatever we learned on the field, and carry it off the field, and make it a better world. And this talk about this is a monthly magazine that you do, Asif. What is it? The Sports Monthly.
Yeah, this is something. This idea came up when we were traveling around the world to play cricket, and when I was playing tennis. And
Yes.
especially in India, or in England, I mean, when I talk about India, you come out of the airport and you see huge posters of those the cricket stars, and you walk on the street and you see sports magazines. You go to the bookshops, you see big photographs, posters, and so I realized that the people in the country recognize and respect their heroes by demonstrating and by giving him the due accolade that they deserve. And at times, I think they also make them look larger than life. But those were very important things, because you need to. I mean, those are your ambassadors. When your sports players who represent your country, they are really your ambassadors, and they need to be given all the due support, respect, and encouragement. And so, as I was going through that, I realized that Kenya, being a sporting nation, we really had nothing of substance in terms of sports promotion. So I said to myself that once I retire in '99, obviously I wanted to give back to sports. And so there were 2, 3 avenues. One was either go into coaching, or go into sports administration, or do something on my own. I realized that the first two was not my cup of tea, because I had seen the dirt and the poor structures of sports administration in the country. I mean, if it was bad then, it's a disaster now. But I'm sure you're going to ask me that question later on, but I'll address that later. So I said to myself, let me do something that I do not have to ask anybody anything about it. I could create a sports magazine, which is lacking in this country. And so I didn't realize what I was getting into. It's a huge challenge to do publication, to go into media. But fortunately, we have a good team. We persevered with the support that we had internally, externally, and I was determined that we're going to make a success of this magazine. And
Right.
fortunately, we've completed, as we speak today, at the end of last month, we completed 20 years of publication. It's the only consistent sports magazine in this country. It's on social media. We have all the past issues on the website. And I also do write a column. And like you, I speak my mind. And I have expressed quite a few things for those who wish to follow on what has happening in Kenyan sports, especially in cricket and tennis, and in general, can follow that column and maybe read what I express. So it's here to stay. We are starting our third decade. I'm hoping that we can continue, but we're also looking at now a succession plan, which I think is paramount in any success that you wanted to follow. So we're looking at speaking to some organizations that will outlive me so that they could continue and make this another legacy or another magazine like Reader's Digest, which continues, which was started years back, very successful magazine. So I'm hoping that we can either get somebody to take over in time to come so that they can take it to a much higher level than what we have done.
Brilliant. Just to quickly, just to say a quick hi to all those people who joined at the start, and for all those kind sentiments. And Well, somebody's asking, why don't you join with an international commentary panel? I think if people have heard Asif talking, I think it should be Asif who should be in that commentary panel, not me. I'm just doing it for the fun of it, and I'm glad that the people out there enjoying it. Ravi, yes, it's like going back home. But Asif, yes, he's a Mombasa boy. You rightly said, yes, he's from Mombasa, but now he's residing in Nairobi at the moment. And thank you, Firm, for your kind words. Ron, Pandula, Prasanna, all you guys for being a part of the show. It's great to have you. And once again, Asif, all the very best, with your future endeavors, with your magazine. I hope you go from strength to strength. That's great words. And I also hope that Arjuna, at least he can give me a call if he's listening in, so he can say quick jumbo to you. And talking about '96 World Cup, I think you were vice captain then, and your side was led by, as you rightly said, that Maurice Adumbe, very flashy personality, outgoing personality, a great cricketer whom I met in Kenya. I played 1 or 2 games against him, just a couple of friendly games. Brilliant sportsman. Could you tell us, like what really happened to Maurice? And thereafter, that Kenya was looking really up, that you created few upsets, at that level, World Cup level. You beat West Indies, you beat us. I think, then you went on to beat India in one of the another. I think the game that probably you captained, that you beat team led by Azharuddin, and you were right up there. So 2 questions. If you can talk about that's all those cricketers who will listen to this program later, who is not online right now, and if you can just, lots of people, it's very hazy that what transpired to and what happened to Maurice, and you can just enlighten everyone who is out there listening. And if you don't mind, Asif, this is the chance.
Well, let me put it this way. Maurice, in my view, is one of the finest cricketers this country has produced, along with Steve Tikolo. There's always been a comparison between the two, but I don't think that they need any comparison. They were an institution in their own way. They both did proud to the country. They did proud to themselves. But the problem started, I think, after '99, when I retired and Maurice took over the captaincy. And, it's one thing to be a captain, it's another thing to manage the team and to manage the pressures and to manage the environment around. And, of course, I think you are referring to the match fixing issue where he was found guilty and match. He was involved with the betting, or there was something on the matter. Yes. And it's always been a debate whether he really was or he was not. And my view is very clear on this matter that the ICC appointed a very respectable, honorable man who I first met in 1980 when I was 17 on a tour to Zimbabwe, and this is Justice Ahmed Ibrahim.
Yes.
That was my first tour in 1980, and in those days, you never stayed in a hotel. In the culture that we played in the cricket in those days, when you toured, especially when funding was a difficult scenario, you were billeted. And so a couple of players who stayed in each one's house. And so it was completely amateurish. It was completely a social kind of, semi-social kind of a thing. So I was billeted to, then he was known as Ahmed Ibrahim. He was a very prominent lawyer then. And so I interacted with him for almost 3 weeks in that house. And when you live with somebody and you've been looked after, you can see the man's integrity, the man's hospitality, the man's nature, and everything
Yeah.
was 10 out of 10 on the gentleman and his family.
Yeah.
He went on to become a very prominent personality in the judiciary in Zimbabwe. I think he also became, for some time, Chief Justice. He then became the match referee at the ICC on many matches, and then he was appointed as the judge for this allegation. And when you read his ruling, and I went through the ruling, it was but obvious that Morris was involved, going by the ruling. And if you respect a judge of that nature, I mean, we can speak what we want, but what the evidence that was presented, the evidence that was given, and the judgment that he produced, was quite evident because the results were very clear that the appeal had no meaning, the appeal had no value. And he was banned for 5 years. And in fact, when he spoke to me, when Morris spoke to me and says, look, this is happening, I told him, look, my advice to you is that you love your cricket. You are one of the finest cricketers that are produced. And these 5 years, if you lose, you are out and completely gone. You've
Sure.
got those limited years. The better thing would be you are a human being. We can all get tempted. We can all make mistakes. But the man is larger than life when you admit your mistake and you come out and say, I made an error. And people will sympathize with you. People will understand the situation better. But you cannot do something wrong and then be further adamant or arrogant to say that, no, I'm going to fight the system. It cannot work. So I told him, if you took my advice, I would rather you ask for a plea bargain, accept the situation, and say, look, I made an error and I would like to be forgiven. That 5 year may have gone to 6 months or could have gone to 1 year because the idea of ICC or any judge, a judge is also a human being. He understands the emotions of what happens to people who are guilty or not guilty. But it is how you relate to the situation. And if you are humble enough or down to earth enough, then you are dealing with another human being at the end of the day. He may be the judge, but he also has feelings. He also
Sure.
understands human emotions. But obviously, he didn't take that advice. Maybe that was his decision. Maybe his advisors then other advisors may have said, no, stick to it and we'll fight this case. And not only will you win this case, you'll even be paid a lot of money for wrongly being accused. So, it's a very sad situation because I have roomed with him on many of the tours. He's been my captain. I've been his captain. I mean, I've seen him at the closest quarters. I mean, he's a far excellent cricketer. I mean, there is no question on that. I mean, he's one of the finest all-rounder this country has produced. His results speak for itself, and so it's a sad to see an ending of such a legend in that way.
Well said, Asif. That's a lesson to learn here for all aspiring cricketers out there. We all human. We make mistakes. Accept, move on. As you rightly said, if you feel that at the end of the day that you are somewhat guilty somewhere down the line, that's human. We all human. Accept, move on. Because if you really, I think the way the ICC as you rightly said that if you accept that the judgment can be they can show some leniency towards you, that you may live to see the another day, some of the cricketers who got involved in some of these incidents, match fixing and so on and so forth, and some of them have come back and performing greatly. And because your career as a sportsman, it's a very short space of time, just if you miss it, and especially when you're at the height of your career, and you forego a couple of years, then you're gone. You probably will not get a second chance, although people say the life is full of the second chances. You may not get it at this level, and that's what reality is. So it's sad. It's on one side that it's just it's a Maurice Dumbe. I don't know whether you could see this picture. And then cricket, I think you from 96 you went on to 1999, that you may not see that picture. The picture quality is not that great, but this is a rare picture that was taken at Lords, if I'm not mistaken, that with all the this was ICC Cricket World Cup. When was this? That was in India?
This is the Kenyan team for 99 World Cup.
All right, okay, that's a Kenyan team. There's another picture.
No, I think that's the 2003 World Cup team.
So that's the time that you led the Kenyan team, right?
No, the 2003 was led by Steve Picola. I made a comeback on that tour.
Right. Yes. Let's see the way I can play this. Whether we'll be lucky enough to. That is the tour that you had a magical spell, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's something that I almost, or rather, talk in every interview. So it always brings a smile on my face.
Yep, it's playing. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Oh my God!
Oh yes! Well bowled. Cricket delivery after having spun a couple, fizzed in the cricket ball.
That's the arm ball. You got punching with the arm ball. I for a moment I thought it pitched outside the line, but on the replay it says it's in line.
Well, you can even use the DRS here.
Yeah.
Brought back into the team, and have a look at this. Excellent delivery, pitched in line and carried on with the arm, beating Ricky Ponting, and he was sure Karim that was out. Steve Buckner as usual says out and then signals out. Like that, it's gone. Very good bowling, very thoughtful bowling. He spun one where Lehman had to adjust, then he lets it just go on with the arm, and Darren Lehman, having seen the one before spin, allows for that, gets a little outside edge. Nicely taken by the keeper, kept his presence of mind, stayed down, straight in the gloves, little wobble here, out for two, 117 for four. Well, quite a few changes in this Australian batting lineup. It's Brad Hawke coming out to replace Darren Lehman. No Damon Martin yet. No Ian Harvey. That's ball again. 3 wickets for Aasif Karim. Well. What's happening here? 18 overs, 117 for 5, and it's been brilliant bowling by Aasif Karim, 59 years old, changing the pace beautifully. Cricket ball followed by another slow delivery, which has gone straight back to him. Second ball. The crowd are ecstatic, so are the Kenyans, and you can understand why. 117 for 5.
Well, Aasif, that's a brilliant spell, mate. And if I may recall, I think at one point you had figures of having bowled 8 overs. You have taken 3 wickets and you have conceded something like 7 runs, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Well, in fact, after the 8th over, the analysis read as 8 overs, 6 maidens, 2 runs, and 3 wickets.
Wow, what a spell!
Yeah, in fact, Morris later on told me that he was screaming from the changing room that I should not bowl the 9th over, because had I not bowled that 9th over, it could have been the all-time world record of the most economical spell, because that would have been about 0.25 on the rate. So, but the euphoria and the momentum was so much, and I remember they needed about 4 runs, and my teammate Peter Ongondo was bowling on the other end. And one within my heart I was saying, I hope the game finishes here so that it's over, because there was so much screaming in the crowd, and there was the whole atmosphere changed in that 1 hour, because we were really out of the game. I mean, at one stage, Australia was, I think, 109 for 2 or 15. So it was just another few overs to finish the game. And that 1 hour, when I came on the 16th over until the end, the entire atmosphere changed in the ground. I mean, we're talking about it today, 17 years later. So, it's something that people have remembered. It was a defining moment, that's something that you remember for life. Some of the events that take place in our lives. And this is one incident that most cricket lovers do remember. And as I said, in every cricketing discussions, when it comes to Kenya cricket or when it comes to the World Cup, this episode is a must for discussion. So it was a great feeling. I mean, it's something I treasure today. I mean, when you get a wicket of people like Ricky Ponting, who was dominating in the batting. I mean, the following match in the finals, he got 160 and he was hammering all the spinners of the Indian team. And then you got commentators like Michael Holdings giving you accolades, and you've got Richie Benaud talking about you, and you've got Barry Richards talking about you, and you've got, I think David Lloyd. I mean, you cannot get a better icing to a career that I had of 23 years. So it was a great feeling, especially making a comeback after retiring in '99. So it was a huge satisfying, and the best part was that our team did extremely well. We were a talk of the world as far as the Kenyan cricket was concerned. We beat the former world champion Sri Lanka in the tournament at home. We beat Zimbabwe. We beat Bangladesh. We gave a run to Australia, and so overall we had a dream tournament. But it's sad where we are right now.
What a story, mate. By the way, have you ever met Ravi Shastri? That your bowling action, you still look a lot. I almost called you Ravi. That's it's so much. The resemblance is that so great. You look like Ravi Shastri.
Yeah, in fact, as a youngster, I remember being told, because in the 70s we never had an opportunity to watch any cricket on television. So you would once in a while get a magazine that you would look at world cricket photographs or something. And so a lot of people used to say that I'm lanky like him, tall and skinny. Hair is more like him. Mustache was like him. My bowling action was more like him. And so, yes. And I, of course, have met Ravi, who is also very encouraging, and is another person who speaks his mind quite well, is quite strong, has also had a formidable cricketing record in his career, also been a former Indian captain, and now, of course, a renowned international commentator, and currently I think he's the coach of the successful Indian team.
That's right. He's director coaching, yes, as you're right. And this is the picture that I was looking for. I think this is the ICC World Cup picture in 1999. I think when you captain, I think I can see Arjuna seated in front. You are in between, I think, Fleming and Cronje, is it?
Hansi Cronje, yes, yeah, in between him, right? I'm next to the trophy. I thought I might carry the trophy at the end of the tournament.
We all have, dreams and ambitions, but that, as you rightly said, these are memories that that you would always recall and you will treasure. Just going back, I think we spoke about Morris briefly, and if Morris is still around or if he's listening, all I can say is, I wish the man all the very best. Perhaps it's a little too late for him to make a comeback. And with all the stories, the build-up, 96, 99, 2003, and you as you mentioned that you beat Sri Lanka in Nairobi in 2003. I must tell you that I was working in Kenya at that point. And it so happened day after the match was the tea auction. And the moment I walked in, I got a standing ovation, mate. I never forget that. The whole auditorium went boo. And I just held my head. I put it down. I still recall how embarrassing it was. Great game. But I don't think, you played in that game. It was Colin Zabuya, I think, who ran through us. You were rested probably. You were on the bench. Great game. And tell us briefly, where did Kenya cricket go? In fact, there is a question from one of our leading journalist, Mr. Rex Clementine. Two questions. Do you feel that, when you, I know that, you had certain issues, Rex, that Kenya had, like, the infrastructure issues, also that, there was a reason perhaps why ICC probably did not give you the due recognition, and you were always knocking, on the door that, you were about to get that, one-day status. And then from there onwards, what happened to Kenya cricket? Where are you right now?
Well, we got our one-day status in '97. After we played the great tournament in the '96 World Cup, we again had to qualify for the next World Cup, which the associate tournament played, where about 22 countries participated. This tournament in Malaysia. And once again, 3 teams were to qualify, and Bangladesh and Kenya reached the finals, and we lost in one of the most exciting matches I have played, where we lost in the last delivery against Bangladesh. And after that, ICC recognized, and of course with good lobbying by both the boards, Bangladesh and Kenya, and ICC created what is called an ODI then. That was the first time the ICC created a one-day international team for the younger teams to come in. So the first 2 teams that were given that honor and privilege was Kenya and Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh already had a cricketing culture for years. Of course, they were a weak nation then in terms against the big boys, but they had good domestic and a very competitive domestic cricket. We had the longer version also, and Kenya was doing very well in the one day. And I strongly accept, and I want to repeat this, I strongly accept and believe that ICC did the correct decision by not giving Kenya the test status, because we did not deserve it. The reason I say that is that for one to get a test status, you must have the infrastructure in place. This was a similar question I was asked by one of the journalists in the 2003 World Cup. And it was a huge headline that the former Kenyan captain says Kenya should not get the test status. And I strongly believe, and you can see the results where we are right now. For one to get a test status, you must have solid domestic structure. What do I mean by solid domestic structure? You must have the longer version of cricket. You must have the 3-day matches, the 4-day matches, which none does not exist. It never existed. The only cricket, and you've been here, so you know the system here, the only cricket that we played was one day. Now, on a one-day basis, you cannot get the test status, number one. Number two, we did not even have what I call a solid domestic or a development system, because remember, as we said earlier, a cricketer's life is limited. What happens to the feeding system? What's coming through? So the only way you can create that is when you have a good junior development structure, where you have the under 11s, the 13s, the 15s, 17s, and that's not something that is rocket science. Every progressive, every successful cricketing nation, and for that matter, not only in cricket, any sport in the world, you must have a solid development structure, which didn't exist. And so where are the players going to come from? Once the Odumbes or the Tikolos and the rest phase out, what happens and what comes through? And the results are quite clear where we are right now. We are now playing Division 3 and going further south. So Bangladesh, even though they were slightly weaker in terms of international, but they were at par as far as Kenya cricket was concerned in one day. But they had a huge government support. They had a huge infrastructure within the system. They had a huge development program, a very competitive domestic cricket. And today you can see the results of Bangladesh. They are a force to reckon with. They have done very well in the last 2 World Cups. They have done quite well against the test playing nations, especially at home, and like most countries do. And so I think Bangladesh has done proud and justice to the status that they got. I'm a big fan of Bangladesh cricket. I think they have done well because I've seen them grow, and I wish them continued success. And I think they are an example that Kenya needs to very quickly learn if we have to make a mark or to grow again in cricket in this country.
Well said, Aasif. I think that answers the question that lots of people who ask me what happened to Kenya cricket. It's been very brief. As I mentioned that, you had certain limitations and also that infrastructural well, the deficiencies, I would say that, it's restrictions, or you only played one day cricket, and your stadiums, the wickets, what can I say, the teams were not equipped or ready to play the longer version, and which resulted, as you rightly said, that Kenya never got test status, which is sad. And then I believe that certain other from an administration point of view, that you had various some disastrous results with some of the individuals who ran Kenya cricket, which is very sad. If you don't want to say it, I probably would say it on your behalf. I have experienced it personally. I wish Kenya cricket, someday, that they will get back to what they deserve, and we need other smaller playing nations in the cricketing world. I hope they will join the at least get their one day status back. Looking at the picture, and I just posted another one that you are in chat with Aravind De Silva. I think this was again perhaps in 2003 or 1999. I'm not too sure.
This is in 2003, and this was in the vessel. This was during the all the teams photograph, and it was an excellent event that was organized in a vessel, and we was overlooking the cables at the back and in Cape Town. And so we were just discussing because I think he was also kind of making his last tournament to play as a player. And so there was a lot of question mark on whether he should be playing that tournament or not. I remember in 2003, there was a lot of discussion in the Sri Lankan cricketing fraternity and in the world cricket. And I mean, he is another institution as far as Sri Lankan cricket is concerned. He was a gutsy cricketer, a man who performed, delivered, and his 100 in the Sri Lankan World Cup final in '96 speaks for itself. He did a fantastic thing. He's done proud to Sri Lankan cricket, and so we were just interacting and just giving each other some encouraging words.
Yeah, that's right. So you have had like many interactions with Sri Lankan players. So I quickly try and just try and post some of the pictures that the encounters you had with certain players in the Sri Lanka team. Here's another, the veteran himself, Mr. Muralidharan. Just the two great spinners that I have seen, Mr. Karim and Mr. Muralidharan. I think it looks like one of the banquets that you guys are both in full gear, all kitted up.
Yeah, this was in Dubai. I think it was 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I was there, and he was the brand ambassador for a company that was launching some product.
Okay.
And one of my good friends in Kenya, who is also my client, invited me for this function because they also were buying these goods for this company. And so that's where we met, and of course it was always a pleasure to interact with Murli, who has always got some good jokes behind him and some funny remarks that he makes, and a very very candid character, and a person you enjoy interacting with, a very very relaxed person. And he's done great for world cricket and for Sri Lanka, and when I look at him, it reminds me of what Arjuna did for him in '95 when there was a lot of question mark on his bowling action in Australia, and there was a huge controversy, and I think full credit must also go to Arjuna for backing him, for standing behind him, fighting for him, and I think Murli also acknowledges this over the years, and today the man is holding a world record of, I think, well over 800 wickets in Test cricket.
That's right. He's an amazing character, both on and off the field. And I hope Murali is listening in, if you get a chance. And there's another picture that I have posted. It's a interaction you had with, I think, Ranjan Madugal. Ranjan still continues to be I think he's the head of match referees, the director, the all match referees is still around. That I understand that you want to get in touch with Ranjan over some that you need some clarification over some issues regarding ICC. If someone can get the message across to Ranjan, I hope Ranjan can get in touch with you and just to help you out.
Yeah, I met Ranjan first I think this was the Coca-Cola Trophy in India. 1998 May, where we beat India for the first time. I mean,
That's
it was
right.
54 degrees. It was extreme. It was the midst of Indian summer. I think it was in the month of May. I think he was just getting into match referee. He was, I think, new in that. He was one of his first assignments. I think one of the first ones. And he's been in the system for 20 plus years. He's done proud to the job that he's doing. I think he's heading the match referee. He's very well respected at ICC. He's very well respected by his fellow match referees and by, I think, all the captains. So I mean, you can see with what Sri Lankan cricket has done from a very humble beginning in the 70s and 80s, and when they came into top gear in the mid 90s. I mean, they've done proud at world level. I mean, when you look at Murli's record, you look at Arjuna's record, you look at Arvinda's record. Sanath unfortunately has gone down, but when you look at his records and you look at what Ranjan, and I'm sure many others, like I think Kumar
Sangakkara, yeah.
Sangakkara has done. I mean, he's now the MCC president. I mean, so Sri Lankan cricketers have done extremely well. And then Kumar Dharmasena is also umpiring at the highest level. So I think Sri Lankan cricket have done. And what pains me when I say this in a positive way for Kenya, we could have equally have done this. We have phenomenal world-class cricketers in the team. And Kenyans did proud. Had we handled our situation better, I think some of us or some of the people who are involved in Kenya cricket would have also played a very important role at international cricket.
Exactly. Once again, a big hello to all those people who are watching out there from Carol. Carol is in a great follow as always. She's one of my guests in usual shows. Aasif, you probably would have seen her. She's a firebrand. She's an activist. Talks about so many issues, regarding women's affairs. I wish her well in all her work. She has a weekly show as well, and on women's affairs, the people should tune in. A great discussion with four other leading ladies. Shailin Shah, all the way from Mombasa, just say jumbo to both of us. Divesh Rajaratna, say one of the Australia's best players of spin. Lenham had no clue facing Aasif, sir. Must be he has given your figures as well. Alistair D'Souza from, say, remember that match Nairobi Gymkhana there. I think when you have time, Aasif, that when just go and say jumbo to all your fans who's just messaging. And Nisha Pires all the way from South Africa. Good day to you too, Shorab. It's an absolute honor to see Aasif Karim, Sham Impet, such a legend. Respect, Sandeep Bama. My God, Sandeep, good to have him on the show all the way from Singapore. Good to have you on the show, boss. Sandeep was a very interesting character. Asif, I hope you will meet him one day. Sandeep was the SLPL boss in Sri Lanka. He ran a very successful tournament. The only one we had, unfortunately, we haven't had a tournament thereafter, which the Sri Lanka cricket is hoping to revive this August, hopefully. And Sandeep's a great character. He's a go-getter, and he's a kind of person that Kenya cricket needs. If you can get him he's got big plans. He knows what he's doing. He perhaps is one person who can revive the game in Kenya. Get in touch with Sandeep. I think Sandeep is based in Singapore, and he does a lot from cricketing perspective. And thank you, Sandeep. Thank you. He's in New York right now. He says, "Okay, thanks for your kind words. Thanks for listening to us." And Aasif, the time's running out. I didn't realize that I have spoken to you for almost 1 hour. And before we wind up, and just to focus on, I think your son is following your footsteps, and I think he's representing Kenya at the moment. He has done very well. Tell us something about your son's career, how you are helping him. What is he trying to? What is his future plans are? Just the people who are listening out there, just talk about him a little.
Well, we come from a sporting heritage and family. My father was also an international sportsman who played at the highest level of two sports, cricket and tennis. And Irfan now is the third generation who's carrying on the dynasty, and he eats, he sleeps, he drinks cricket. That's all he does. He's focused. He's determined. He studied in England at Loughborough University, where he was on a scholarship. And Loughborough is one of the 6 MCC university that is supported. That's the highest level of cricket that you could play in England as far as university is concerned. And that photograph that you see is in Dehradun, India. This was when you got man of the match against Bangladesh. This was the University World Cup in 2015. His university called Loughborough won the local tournament in England, and so he got their university and he got an opportunity to represent England in this tournament, and they reached the finals. He was declared the best batsman of the tournament. He's the batsman keeper, and they lost to South Africa, the Tuks University of South Africa. So he's has played a good level of cricket in England, managed to get some opportunities in the second counties. He's playing in the Premier League in England during the summer. Of course, right now, everything is on hold as far as cricket is concerned due to COVID. And when he gets an opportunity, he plays for Kenya. And so he's looking forward to getting opportunities. I'm also trying to see whether he can get some competitive opportunities in other parts of the cricketing world. Because unfortunately, and I say it times 100, unfortunately, we have let ourselves down in Kenya as far as cricket is concerned.
Good on him. It's good to hear that. That the words. To all those young cricketers who are listening out there, eat, drink, sleep, cricket. And if you want to make it to the top, those are the magical words. There are no shortcuts. The hard work will, pay you back one day. Just to help you out, Aasif, I won't promise you anything, but I think we spoke about it, off air sometime back. Is if Irfan is keen, I would love to, because of the connection that I have for you, in my own small way, would like to invite Irfan to Sri Lanka once we are over this, and once we get over this pandemic and unprecedented times. It will be great to have the boy with us. No guarantees, mate. I'm not assuring him a place, but if he wants to, as you rightly said, that we got excellent facilities at the BRC. For any young aspiring cricketer who wants to do well in life, we can perhaps give him that opportunity which Kenya is unable to offer right now. So keep in mind that once things get better, I would love to have Irfan if Irfan is listening out there. Work on your footwork, how to play. Ask your dad how to counter good spin bowling. That the wickets are very different to what you find in England, and the different ball game altogether, and also that the heat is another factor. Sri Lanka, perhaps, I don't know. I mean, you have played only one game. To me, that I had the opportunity of playing in various parts of the world, I reckon Sri Lanka, I would rate, is one of the hardest places to play the game, because it's not the heat. If you look at it and you'll say, what are you talking, mate? It's only 32 degrees. But the high humidity content, the percentage, that really drains you. So you got to be really, really fit. You have to do special training to do well in Sri Lanka. And it's a different ball game, as I said. But it is a good learning ground. So this is the place for any cricketer, any overseas cricketer who wants to further their career, come to Sri Lanka and play cricket with us. It's we are fully geared to handle. We got so many teams playing at Division 1 level, and there are always opportunities and a place, the country to come and explore, enjoy cricket and our hospitality. That's as much as that I love Kenya. You can understand the love that I have for my own country, the country that I grew up with. That's it's always it's an honor and a pleasure that I represented, and I'm still involved in cricket, and I'm trying to give back, whatever I can do. Right, Aasif, very shortly.
Before you go, I just want to say thank you to you for that offer, and I'm sure he's listening into this, and of course I will also have a word with him.
Yes.
But I can assure you that there are many other good cricketers we have in Kenya, but it's a start that we need to give somewhere, so that we can now look at how we can move forward to Kenya cricket. Because if we keep on talking about the past, on how good we were and how the administration has messed it up, it's not going to help. Time is
True.
moving. We need to wake up. We need to be real. We need to be honest to ourselves. We need to be sincere to ourselves. And if we really love the sport does not belong to any individual. It belongs to everybody. And there is nobody here who should believe that they own the game. So I think the listeners here, I'm sure there are many administrators, current administrators listening to this. I think they need to wake up. They need to be honorable about where we are right now. And if they're really sincere to the sport, they need to step aside and give other people an opportunity to revive cricket in this country. And I just saw a statement from Sandeep, what you just talked about. And if you look at what Sandeep has just mentioned about giving some Kenyan cricketers an opportunity to play in Sri Lanka. So as I said, we have some good cricketers here, not only Irfan, there are others also. And so with time, and if we can develop a good relationship, and bottom line is that these cricketers must deliver, they must perform. We're not going there on a joyride. It's a business, it's a job, it's a profession, and you must deliver the job to give opportunities for others.
Exactly. No, I'm glad that you read the comment by Sandeep. By the time he wrote, we have already addressed it. I managed to dig out one of the close-ups with you and Arjuna, like a love story, mate. You two, look young and young and wild. Where is this place? Is it the Gymkhana?
No, this is at the Jaffrey Club. This was the game where he came to play for the earthquake money that we were
Oh, okay.
raising.
That's the
Yeah,
charity game you were talking about.
yeah, in fact, it was very nice. We had the Indian High Commissioner who came in to support the game. We also had the Sri Lankan ambassador who came. And then there was a very nice a luncheon organized in honor of Arjuna, where some of us were invited. Because I mean, Arjuna in cricketing terms is an institution in Sri Lanka. I mean, nobody can take away. Nobody can take away what he's done for cricket. I mean, he played the first test in 1982 when Sri Lanka got the test status, and he played the 100th test. So that's a unique record on its own. And he's brought you the World Cup in 1996 against all odds. So yes, I have a lot of respect for his cricketing prowess, his cricketing intelligence, and I still remember one thing that now that you brought about it is when he came here. At that time, there was a lot of hue and cry going into the system in Kenyan cricket team because there were too many squabbles going on, and so there was already a discussion taking place between the association and myself, where they were talking about whether I would reconsider coming back for a short while to calm things down because it was not going well. There were so many internal problems, external issues. And so I asked him, I said, Arjuna, what do you think this is what's been going on? And I still remember his words. He says, go back in if they ask you with respect and with candid, but make sure that you don't stay long. Go in briefly, get the job done, and get out. Don't go back in. And I took those words. I went back into, and that's when I was recalled for the 2003 World Cup that we played, and after that I called it a day. So I remember those good words that he gave, and I think his intelligence in cricketing angle was quite. I think with the experience that he had. I mean, he came in, I think when he was only 18 years old in the national team. So he has seen the Sri Lankan cricket from way down to the top.
Yeah, exactly. Asif, if you talk to any of the other guys who has played the game with Arjuna over that period of time, they still rate him as the most tactical captain that we ever had. The cricketing brain he had was, he's absolute genius. When he's on the field, the things he did. That how we won the '96 World Cup, as you mentioned at the start of this conversation, that we were not tipped to win. We were not even underdogs. I believe, although Tony Gregg had his doubts, and he always backed us immensely. That he believed that Sri Lanka would create some upsets at the World Cup, but no one thought that we would win. But how we managed to win with just bits and pieces players. We didn't have any great players except Murali was just coming up. We that it's all Arjuna's brains. That we started the beginning of 2 weeks, I think 2-3 weeks back. I had Dav Wetmore who was the coach of that '96 team, and people were talking about how we came with the hitting the ball over the top. The first during the first power play that we exploited the conditions. and we opened with Sanath and Kalu, and it worked in our favor. That, as you rightly said, you did not know what happened when they started attacking you, and that was the game plan. It was all brains, and Arjuna and Dulip, that they put together. As I said, we didn't have a great team, but with the limited the resources we had, we went on to win the World Cup. That's a brilliant story.
In fact, I remember another point where I even asked him on this decision of how they decided to bring Sanath and Kalu in the beginning. And he told me that this was a decision made in Australia when they were playing between him, Dev Watmore, and Dulip. They were sitting one evening and discussing on a strategy, and this brainwave came in, and they said, let's give it a shot. And I mean, that change that Sri Lankan World Cup did changed the entire structure of world cricket. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to emulate what Sri Lankans did in that 15 overs. And that took almost 15, 20 years of the strategy that we did. And
secondly, true, but you are absolutely right. And, we must also not forget, Mark Greatbatch's role. I think it was Marky who, played for New Zealand, because I was in that tour when New Zealand tried it out. They could not execute it to the level that Sanath and Kalu did. Probably because of the conditions and the extra bounce that on the wickets of New Zealand, that it was difficult to go over the top. But the man who first started, not many people know, we must talk about, must give credit to Mark Greatbatch, the Kiwis. Also another team, they always managed to creep, get through the back door, because they are thinking cricketers. Very quickly, from cricket to tennis, there's an old picture of you, mate. Were you ambidextrous by any chance? Were you carrying the tennis in your left hand or the right hand?
That's left hand. This was a photograph at Harvard University, where in the US, where I was there for 4.5 years on a tennis scholarship. So,
all right,
tennis helped me educate, because, we also come from a very challenging background financially. And so sports has made me what I am today. So tennis took me to also world level. It made me graduate from top university in America. I played the highest level of tennis there. And then, of course, cricket took me to world stage, being from an amateur cricketer or a club cricketer.
There you go, mate. There's another picture of you, with a tennis racket in your hand. So as I said at the beginning of our chat show, that you are a unique person, that you don't get a chance to speak to a double international every day. That's a unique achievement. Nowadays, Aasif, you rarely see any sportsman playing at highest level, international level in one sport, representing another sport. Unfortunately, you know that it's not possible. To concentrate on one sport and to give the same amount and time to another sport. It's not going to work. But during your time, you did it, and when you're looking back, it will be absolutely brilliant. Before we wind up for the day, Aasif, what are your parting words? What you want to tell the people who listen to you all this while, and your fans back in Kenya and for Kenya cricket? This is your opportunity, mate.
Yeah, two things. One, I just want to say that we have to enhance the sports support that I would like to do, not only Kenya but globally. We've started what we call Kenya International Sports Film Festival. And the purpose of this is to have sports documentaries and movies recorded for posterity purpose. It's important, I think, that we need to record. We need to keep things in record for the next generation to see where we have come from. And that can only be done when we document. There are some very, very exciting stories that every country has in sports. And I believe that sports unifies people, and sports movies and documentaries inspire a society. And so that's one area that I think we need to do. And I would appeal to all the filmmakers that are listening here, or filmmakers that people who are listening can impart that knowledge to them, that they need to look at this film festival that we have annually. We've had it for the last 2 years. It's the only sports film festival in Africa. And normally we have it towards the end of the year, but subject to COVID this year, we will see how it goes. So that's one area that we would like to promote. And last year and the year before, we had almost over 2,000 movies were submitted for this festival. We also have panel discussions during these discussions on sports, affecting sports, not only Kenya, but globally. So that's an area that I just wanted to pass the message to all the viewers. And secondly, as we close this, I always say there's a good saying that I would like to put in, that we all have one life to live. But if we live the life to the fullest, then I think one life is more than enough. So it's important that all of us must give the best of whatever we are doing. If we are a sweeper, let us be the best sweeper in the office. If you are a team maker, let's be the best team maker. Give it your best shot. If you're a cricketer, give it your heart and soul. Anything you do, give it 100% without any excuses, and the results will speak for itself, and it will be a very satisfying life to end with.
Brilliant words, Asif. That anyone listening out there, and I agree with you totally. That the other day I asked a person, during this period, what did you learn most? What was in store for you? If you ask that question, people being cooped up in houses and without any focus in life, without knowing, how to go about, what did you do?
Well, in every adversity, there is an opportunity.
Sure.
I always look at it that way. So, all of us have things that we wanted to do. There are always things that we can do. There are also things we can learn. Learning is from cradle to grave. So if the opportunities this time right now are limited to doing what you are daily doing, there are also opportunities for what you were not doing before. So, for example, you could take a new course. Nowadays with digital, you can take online courses, things that you think can enhance your life, because it's very easy to just complain. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm bored, I'm this. No, it's all up here. Everything works here. So if you have a positive attitude, if you have a positive mind, you can do a lot of things out of this. And COVID will finish. It's not here to remain for life, or it's not here to remain forever. So are you ready post-COVID is the question you need to ask yourself. Are you ready to do new things? Are you ready to be more valuable than what you were before? And this is the time to capitalize or to develop skills, things, or even do unfinished business. A lot of people have a lot of unfinished business domestically, whether you talk about paperwork, whether you talk about getting your things in order. So it's time to take this opportunity on a positive way and see that you can even improve in this adversity.
Very well said, Asif. It's always a pleasure talking to you, mate. The great words of wisdom coming from you. And before we wind up, quick thank you to your daughter for setting you up on the technical aspect, and quick jumbo to your lovely wife for lending all her gear to you. Without her help, you would have been stranded. And all the effort that you put in, and it's a beautiful setup. When I'm looking at that tree behind you, that reminds me, what I really miss back in Kenya. The all that greenery, the clean air, and what a beautiful place that is. People must take a chance and visit that continent. It's an amazing place that people have no idea until you get to Africa what Mother Africa has to offer. Such a brilliant, beautiful place with lots of memories. Asif, thank you very much. It was my pleasure and honor to have you on the show. It was an absolute privilege to talk to you, and hopefully one day, before it's too late, that I can make a trip back home and spend some time with you guys. Come to Nairobi, and before heading to Mombasa. That's my dream, and hopefully that I can do that one day. Good luck with whatever you do in your post COVID life and post cricketing and tennis life. And big jumbo to all the mates. They are your whole teammates who've been watching, and who will be watching after this. That everybody who missed the show. It's absolute pleasure and honor, Aasif.
Thank you. And I just also want to take this opportunity, Charit, to thank you for inviting me and for the initiative that you have taken to do this very popular interviews that you do. I have seen some of them. Very exciting. You hear a lot of things that you normally don't hear. Things that happen behind the scene. Like what happens in the dressing room and what happens on some decisions that were made. I mean, a lot of people didn't know how this decision was made for Sri Lanka to take the 15-over challenge in the World Cup. So it's out of such interviews, out of such initiatives, that you hear a lot of exciting things, and I encourage you to continue doing this, develop it even further, get more guests. I'm sure there's a lot of exciting things that we will all hear about it, and I wish you well. And as we say in Kenya, Karibu Nyumbani, welcome home to Kenya. This is your home also. You spent a decade of your life in this country, and I'm sure you can also contribute something to Kenyan cricket in form of advice, in form of guidance. And right now, Kenya cricket needs dire help.
Asante sana Buana. That's always, and I still remember my, my Swahili kidogo. Just, I need to brush it up.
Well.
Yeah, just need to brush it up. Maybe a quick trip to Kenya will help me to do that. Once again, thanks.
As I said, in COVID, you can always do online, so you can brush up your Swahili, doing it from there only.
There you go. That's food for thought, mate. Food for thought. Just that's a good idea. That whenever I feel bored or I feel like I'm jobless, get online, do a crash course of Swahili, then surprise everybody with my knowledge. Just great stuff. That's about it, I think, for today. That we have spoken for 1 hour 21 minutes, and it didn't even feel the time moving. It was great. And once again, thanks a lot for the absolute professional for your professionalism. That you're a perfectionist. You got everything right. You really worked hard. I must tell you that unlike most of the other guys that I had on the show, okay, yes, we worked hard to make sure that that your settings, your audio, video quality, everything is right. You put in a lot of hard work. You ensured that you got the best background, you got your best network going, and that's that shows how keen you are. And whatever you do in life, you do it to perfection. That's what it is. You give your best. This like 1 hour 22 minutes that we spoke. You gave your best, and that's what I appreciate most. Once again, thanks, Aasif. Stay safe. Take care. And many thanks to your family, and hopefully that we'll get your son here perhaps next season, and maybe some other aspiring Kenyan cricketers. And I'm always, whatever I can do to help Kenya cricketing wise or any other means, I'm happy to do that. I think that's my duty to give it back to the country that was home to me, actually rightly said, for a decade. Once again, mate, everyone who's listening out there, whatever that remains the part of the day, have a good evening and a good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world. And I will be posting this on YouTube shortly, probably tomorrow, day after, once I finished everything that I need to do. But these are it'll be unedited. There's nothing to edit. It's perfect. And so it'll go on YouTube the way it is. And keep supporting us. And thanks for listening once again, everybody out there. Have a good day. Take care and stay safe. Thank you, Aasif.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure talking to you. Bye-bye. There you go, people. It's another end of another chat. What a person. It's such a inspiring chat. It was a pleasure talking to him. I really didn't feel the time going. Big thank you to everyone who was listening out there. Once again, it's without your support, your help, that we'll not be able to carry on. And so that's the end of the conclusion of another show. Hopefully that we'll be back with another show next week and with more good news. I'm getting a little impatient that without knowing what the future holds, and looking forward for the curfew to come off and get back on the field and do what I do best. And in the meantime, I just try to keep you entertained and keep your focus and do the best I can. Thank you very much once again. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, I'll see you on the other side. Take care and stay safe. Bye for now.